Hello everyone. I'm sorry about that if you were watching a minute ago. I had a power cut. It's what happens in Portugal when there's rain. The power decides to go. Well, really when there's rain and when there's sun, so it can go as and when it feels like. So I'm back now, and I thought I'd just start again because I want to get the recording of the whole thing. And unfortunately, while the stream can keep going, if the power goes off, I think the recording will disappear. So unfortunately, but I will be quicker if you were watching before on this first section. So yeah, the point of this stream was just to go over the P's and Q's on the alt watch list, yeah, I'm determined to finish these because I'm still doing my annual updates, and it's just been going on far too long now. But I'll do a quick update of Bitcoin and Ether first, not too much because I already did a big update on it yesterday. But just kind of what I'm seeing still at the moment. So from the ETF perspective, I was talking yesterday about there being a lot of ETF sells, and that has continued today, a huge amount from BlackRock this morning, and now big ones from Franklin Templeton, Valkyrie, which I think is maybe one of their first, and Grayscale again this afternoon. So as I've said previously, I assume these are sells, but they could also be transfers to and from different entities. My other data, which hopefully will load. I haven't loaded these pages since I restarted the computer. So I thought we'd have bigger sells yesterday than we have got on the aggregated data, but I feel like there's potentially some lag in when the data comes through here. So it's kind of hard to tell, and also the two data sources are slightly different. So we've had obviously huge amounts of sells all week, and then another 754 million, I think this is a million US dollars yesterday, yeah, with large amounts just across the board really, but huge amounts from BlackRock. It's, I think now, according to this table, I think these last 2 days are the biggest sells that we've had so far on the ETFs. My other source, which is Bitcoin Strategy Platform, I think you can't see the link on the on your screen, Bitcoin Strategy Platform shows higher yesterday, which is kind of what I expected. I think they've got more on the BlackRock side than my other source, and Fidelity, I think, has a huge one there. I don't think Fidelity, yeah, I know Fidelity is much smaller on what I have. Fidelity can transfer between entities though, so again, like I say, it's hard to know which is the most accurate, but this is showing 11,000 Bitcoin yesterday and 10,000 the day before. And as I say, the Arkham data maybe transfers, but there's a fair amount coming through today. So I haven't been overly confident about Bitcoin having some decent bounce at this level. So we've obviously had a small bounce, and Korea and CME have both rejected 8-hour supply. But even the US dollar pair didn't even quite get to 8-hour supply. And then we've got US dollar dominance holding 8-hour demand. So again, while US dominance is an area of interest, it's obviously a very big one. It's just started coming into the 2-month level and at weekly supply inside. It's a very big zone. And as I said yesterday, it might have made a double bottom, in which case it could just run through this zone if it wants to. Bitcoin itself, so we do have a 4-hour demand on the CME pair. And it hasn't quite tapped that level yet, so it's possible that we might get a long entry on this. However, it's not really a blind long entry that I'd want to look at. I was hoping for a bigger bounce off the possible swing failure, but now we haven't swing failed the range. That's what I wanted. So just to go quickly into the higher, I actually put a new mouse highlighter on as well, so I don't know if this is going to be helpful or not. But from a daily perspective, obviously we wanted to hold this daily zone at the bottom of the range. You know, there's a 4-hour zone just below that could have propelled a bigger bounce, and we had a wall at 85k, but unfortunately we didn't get a daily swing failure. It's fallen through the zone, it's closed below, and it's looking now like we're going to make a monthly supply above. I haven't added in too many more entries yet. Like I say, I don't want to look for longs on this as yet because we're not in, like I would look for blind longs if we were in a decent demand, but we're not in a decent demand. So I'm not confident on that right now. So we'll just see what happens and see this is going to need more consolidation here. So to the downside, I've said yesterday we had a 4-hour demand immediately below the price. We've got a 12-hour demand below that with where the CME gap is from back when we did the up move in November. And then below that we've got 3 month demand, which are my more confident long entries, and again huge zone, so it could still wick into that, but below 72k is really where I want to be looking for proper longs. The reason I had these mid entries were in case we, like similar to how we had the last 6 month consolidation back down here, is whether we just get retests on the way down. It doesn't necessarily have to go down to 3 month demand in one candle. We know we retested a 4-hour demand in May 2024, and that had a move all the way back up to the highs, and then we came in and just took out that low and still didn't hit the demand, and then it took 6 months to actually hit proper demand in August. So there is a possibility that we run a similar pattern here. The difference now is that we have the ETFs selling off, so that makes me slightly more concerned. And I'm not really that interested in looking for macro longs until I see the ETFs start buying again, and also decent structure, of course. So I think that's about all I want to say on Bitcoin. Yeah, the only other thing I guess is the short entries. So we're going to get this monthly supply more than likely up here, barring a large bounce in the next 24 hours. We've got a 5-day supply. We've got various zones that aren't tested. And one of the issues I've got, I just don't like this consolidation for a possible short entry. It was too protracted and had too much wicking around. So, I'm unsure, while it has had a decent move away from the zone, I'm unsure how reliable it will be on return. We've also got this 4-hour supply down at the break of the range, so I think it's possible that we don't even get that high. This now coincides with the CME gap. Because CME had a contract rollover on Thursday, yesterday, no, it is Thursday today, no, so maybe a couple of days ago, Tuesday maybe. So now the CME price is at a premium of $500. So while the original CME gap would have been up at the 94k mark, or just under 94k, it's now $500 lower on this chart. So it is possible that we reject. It's also possible the CME, let me just go to the CME chart. We have the gap low, which I've got marked, and then the, why does the supply concern me? Hold on, I'll come back to that in a sec. We've got the CME gap low, so we can sometimes come back up and use the low as resistance rather than actually filling the gap. So there is possible we're going to get a rejection in that area. The supply concerns me because of the structure. I prefer a cleaner, so you can see here we've got a single candle or a couple of candles, but it's a clean, quick consolidation and an up move from it. And then when we come back there, we have a decent up move away from it. When you get these protracted consolidations, I think firstly it can follow the pattern that a lot of ICT traders like to follow, where you've got accumulation, manipulation, expansion. So that's a possibility. In some cases, you've got the possibility that we've got stops above the trend line drop. So yeah, it just makes me, I don't know, it's not clean, I guess, is kind of the main way I look at it. The other thing is when I look back at previous consolidations that are similar. So for example, we've got a couple that resolve upward. So we've got a similar consolidation here. This made, I think, it's not a monthly supply, but this made, I think, a 3-week supply in here. It closed below, it looked like it was breaking down, and then powered straight back up through it. Similarly here, again, you can see we've kind of got a protracted consolidation. This didn't have such a significant drop away as the current price, but then obviously it has run straight back through all the supply. So when it's just messy, it's not necessarily that, and even here, this actually had cleaner supply, but obviously this had come down into a 2-month demand, so that's not the best example. On the downside, you can see, for example, here, we had this long sideways consolidation. I think this resolved into maybe a 2-weekly supply or something like that in there, and it didn't even come back up to test it. And I remember a lot of people at this time were going, oh, we're going to go back and take out the stops here, and it didn't even come close, it didn't even get to the bottom of supply there. So I just want to see a little bit more what price does now, and if we start to get ETF buying coming back in. I don't think there's any other examples that I had, but yeah, I've kind of looked back at a lot of the chart just to see if we have similarities to this consolidation, and like we don't really, to be fair. This is another one. So this arguably is similar, has similarities as well. So again, it had a long consolidation and just sort of messy, but then it spent time down here, and when it came back up, then it did reject that zone. So I guess I want to see if now we've had this drop, are we going to spend time? But again, the difference here is we are in demand already, and so it did have a decent push. Whereas where we are now, I guess we don't have demand already for a start. But also, I guess if this has a quick move back up, then it could well come out and take out this zone, because obviously that's showing like buyers are really still strong and stepping back in. If we have a longer consolidation here, then it's possible, I think, we get the rejection. And I'll get to alts in a minute, but I'm seeing it as sort of similar on a lot of alts. A lot of alts have like 1 month and 2 month supply, and but again, if we test too quickly, so it's generally the speed of the test. So for like what you want, so now we've got this, potentially we're going to have quite a strong close below here, but ideally you don't want the next candle to go right immediately back up and test it. It can still work if that happens, but again, you can see here, like again, we got a close below. This wasn't a strong monthly supply, but it did make a monthly supply there. When it came back into it, it did give a bit of a reaction, but not much. But again, it came back up on the next candle, which isn't ideal. So yeah, we just need to see a little bit more what plays out. You know, again here, then we did have another close below here. It wasn't even a strong one, but it came back up and it did reject straight off the zone. So it, you know, obviously it can go either way. And if this closes as monthly supply, I'm certainly going to be significantly more bearish. The other thing I wanted to comment on, which I was just getting to when the last stream fell down, was the Kimchi Premium. So this has been like a really good top signal. So my drawings back on, but we obviously don't have much data. So I talked about this when we hit the top, and I said, you know, like what we normally get, like when we look at history, we tend to get the US dollar pair hitting the top, then we get, and I had that on the chart. I haven't got it here at the moment. I won't put it on for now, yeah, we get the US dollar pair hitting the top. We then get some consolidation when the Korea pair pushes, and we get the Korea, this Kimchi Premium, so this coming up into, and it's happened on all the bull runs so far. But then also additionally, it's happened on the 2024, in inverted commas, bull run, because that obviously wasn't the top, and we ended up with another run. So, we don't have enough data on this. However, this is obviously a very good indicator of top to what we've got so far. I tried to kind of make the same indication of bottom maybe, but like I was trying to look at, what happens when this comes back to a sort of status quo, which seems to be around, 1,000-ish premium. But there isn't much consistency when I put the Bitcoin price against this. Like it doesn't necessarily, in some cases it bounces, in other cases it goes down more and goes sideways. But this turned out to be like a pretty good top signal here. Yeah, so from the Bitcoin perspective, so the other thing I want to do, so from the short side, obviously, like I've said, there's various, so in summary, there's various zones above that I could look for shorts, and I'm trying to, like I normally stick to a high time frame on this chart, and I've gone a bit too low time frame, but initially we'll have potentially monthly supply, which is closer down to the CME gap, so that would be the first area I'd look for a short if we stay down here until tomorrow. Then there's this 5 days messy zone, which is the possibility that it will run through it. There's a 4 hour just inside that at the top that wasn't tested. Then there's a 2 day above, which is where I really wanted a short, which we didn't get to. And then there's another daily untested at the top. To the downside, we've got 3 month demand. There's various zones within it. So we're going to start looking at the 72, 71, 72k mark, which would just be a test right at the top end of this previous all-time high. In fact, that's even a little bit higher. And then failing that, there's various zones inside, and we just need to watch. And I would suggest not knife catching, or unless you're a long-term DCA buyer, then potentially you can spread entries throughout this zone and hope it holds. And we have an annual demand back down at 46k if this really is a significant top. But in the immediate term, I'm looking for a possibility of a bounce off this 4-hour demand. There's a 12-hour just below with the CME gap from back in November, and then those zones that I just talked about. Ether, there were, you know, so it's in my zone of interest here, and this was purely really based on the fact this was a monthly level retest and then the 61 to 70 fib. Again, it's not having any significant bounce so far. We have double bottom that it made with the wick, and it could go down and take that out, or it could come closer to this zone. Like I was comparing to this bounce over here where it retraced nearly all of it. It didn't take out the low again. I've also commented a number of times that this monthly demand is weak. Sorry, I'm just reading the chat. Do I have a certain trigger you like to use when my prices go to my zones of interest? Yes, I use low time frame supply and demand. So I'll talk about Ether in a minute so you can see, but yeah, I'm looking for basically where low time frame supply breaks, new demand is formed, and you basically start forming an uptrend on the lower time frames. I did an educational video on it recently, which I don't know if you've seen that. Like I had part 1 that I did about 3 years ago showing how I draw my zones, and then part 2 I did the other day, a couple of weeks ago, showing how, sorry, I've got an error on my string, showing how you could enter in these zones. And there's any number of ways. Like I use supply and demand, but you don't have to. You can just blindly enter in the zones if you want, with your stop below, depending on what kind of trader you are. You can use fibs, you can use indicators, RSI divergence, patterns. So I kind of commented on all those things in that video. Personally, I would use supply and demand. And I make some assessment, and a lot of this is gut instinct and experience, but I make some assessment of whether I think the zones are strong or weak. So as I've said here, the monthly demand on Ether I think is weak. I've drawn, you know, structures a number of times showing this move potentially repeated in the bigger picture here and in the very big picture, including this top. So I do a lot of patterns and fractals. You know, the market does form repeating patterns. You know, while some TA people say that like humans are designed to see patterns, I tend to find that a lot of people don't comment on the ones I see, or they see them afterwards. But I spend a lot of time going back and looking at the charts and seeing how price reacts in certain situations. So like I say, a lot of that's experience, but also just time spent. So like, for example, here, you know, we had a bounce here, we had a consolidation, this triangle consolidation and then distribution and running back through it is very common. I compared that up here. I've made the same comment that we'd had this similar here. We'd had a bounce, we'd had a consolidation of triangle, run back up through it into supply. Sorry, I just knocked my drawing off there by mistake, but basically, yeah, like this, and then we ran straight back through it. So it's looking at a lot of those patterns and seeing how price reacts in certain situations. So yeah, anyway, so Ether, oops. Yeah, so I was looking for a bounce in this zone, which we've had, but again, it's been weak, and you can see it's now dropping off that. It had lower areas of interest, this double bottom that it's made with the wick. And also CME hasn't made it to this level. So CME is actually, I think the wicks are in different places, and there is a CME gap down here. Or maybe I think it's slightly higher, but I'll go and look at that in a moment. Below here, we've also got a 3-month demand on this, a 3-week inside it. So, but in the bigger picture, this is also not, so while I say this is not a strong monthly demand, this is also not a strong 3-month demand. Well, 3 months, and then there's a 2-month inside below. So this is also not a strong zone because it's been unable to break the high. But that doesn't mean you won't get a bounce. So I still alerted this monthly for the possibility of a bounce. Like I say, on the smaller time frame, it's exactly the same here. You know, we had a move up, we came back, we made a demand, we've got a demand that's sitting onto the left. It then pushed up, but it was unable to make a new high. So when we came back here, well, we got a bounce. It wasn't a strong demand, so thus it's ultimately fallen through. And that's basically what I see exactly the same here. You know, we've had a move up, we've made a demand here, we've come and tested it, we've made a new demand. We've gone up, we've been unable to make a new high, and then potentially, while I would like a bounce off here, doesn't mean we're going to get one, we could just fall straight back through it. And again, it's exactly the same in the bigger picture here. Come up, retraced, made a demand here, made a new demand sitting on top of it, bounced, unable to make a new high. We expect to bounce back in this zone, or this sort of 3-month zone, if we get there, but it doesn't have to have one. If it followed this pattern, then we get a bounce potentially up to here before the possibility of a bigger drop. But again, like so, it's all I'm saying is like that is demand, but it is not necessarily a strong demand because it's been overall unable to break the high. And we really need to see, so like Ether, you know, as we know, the Ether BTC pair has just been falling consistently, and we really need to see that bounce for this to have any hope. Similarly to the high now, I've just got a ridiculous amount of short entries, so that the long entries are kind of better. At least you can look at the 3-month level, and then 3-month you should have time to enter. You might get an initial bounce off the level, particularly because it's sort of coinciding with some wicks and a possible swing failure, so you might get an initial bounce. In fact, this is a weekly sitting above the 3-monthly, but you might get an initial bounce in here, and I set a new alert for possible swing failure there. But what will tend to happen is you'll get a bounce off the zone, and then it will give you some consolidation for an entry, or it will drop deeper in the zone. Usually strong demands that make significant highs don't get tested, no. Usually strong demands. I think it varies. Bitcoin quite often not. Ether I think more commonly, and alts, like I think typically they do eventually. Bitcoin much less so, because yeah, Bitcoin obviously can break out. So I guess it depends on what perspective you're looking at. So arguably, you know, like this, that could have continued. You know, you might get that kind of structure where, you know, it doesn't come down, it comes into a higher zone and then takes off. And yeah, that's just your judgment. And you know, like I've said, I think these are weak demands, so I think they should get tested. But strong demands, yes, potentially don't. I mean, the same as the, you know, examples over here. You know, this is strong supply, it's had a decent drop away from it, it's broken support, and when it comes back up, it doesn't quite make that level. So yeah, you but for me, like it depends how you trade. Like I'm not so desperate to get in a trade that I will trade outside of a strong demand or a strong supply. You know, and I remember, I think I had somebody that was criticizing me. Go back to the Bitcoin chart. I can't remember exactly where it was. I was thinking about it earlier actually, and it was somewhere down here, possibly here, but like a similar type like structure to here, but maybe here, I don't know. And I was saying, I think let's use this as an example anyway, but maybe it was here, and I think I was saying, well, I want to wait for a supply. There might have been a bigger supply here or something before taking a short. And then I think he was laughing at me going, oh, well, you missed a few $1,000 move or something like that. And I was saying, well, no, but for me, I didn't miss it. You know, like I had plenty of entries up here. But if this doesn't give me the retest that I want, then from a high time frame perspective, then I'm just not in the trade. And you can certainly start, you know, if it doesn't quite get to a level you want and it starts to make other patterns on a lower time frame, then you can get in sooner. So you don't have to wait, but my preference is to wait. I think it's higher probability, and all you're doing in this is not necessarily trying to predict, you know, where Bitcoin's going, you know, where are the zones that I'm interested in. I've told you here, these are all the zones that I'm interested in, and I want to see some sort of pattern there. And I don't mind missing giant wicks, because, you know, how do you, like, the only way of getting in on a giant wick is by having a very wide stop or doing very high risk. So, you know, here, you know, we had not a massive wick, but, you know, a decent drop. This actually went through the weekly demand. And so if you just entered on the weekly blindly with your stop below the weekly, you would have got stopped out of this. So, but you can do that if you want to. But personally, I'd rather kind of go, okay, we bounced in the weekly now, we swing failed it, let's enter on a retest. And I don't mind missing this initial move. Yeah, so I hope that kind of helps. But yeah, all I'm really doing is looking for zones where I want to trade. And if it doesn't get to that zone, then I don't trade. It's that simple. You know, and I do a lot of this analysis for the group, and because people want to know, like, my view of where the price is going. And yeah, so I'm making more analytical guesses, I guess, or like sort of, you know, established guesses than I would like to. But you know, do I want to long here? No, not really. Like I say, on the higher time frame, this for me is not a high probability long. I'd rather long Litecoin or BNB or something that looks significantly better than this, but I'm doing analysis on this because people want it, and because also it gives some idea of what the market's doing. But I might scalp longs in here, but do I want to buy long here to hold, you know, for 10k? Not really. Based on what I see on the chart overall, it doesn't mean it's not going to get to 10k. It just means I don't think it's a particularly high probability trade from this level. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, back to Ether. So as I said, yeah, we've got 3 months demand below. If we choose to test that, we've got a possibility of a swing failure taking out these wicks if we go a little bit lower. And then above there's just heaps of zones. So when I want to look at this once the monthly candles closed again, I think this isn't, oh actually no, this might create, yeah, so I actually did look at this yesterday and I'd forgotten. This is potentially going to create a 2-month supply at 2,500. So again, that doesn't make me overly confident, barring again 24 hours. We'll see what happens, but this could create a 2-month supply here. We had a 2-month supply above, it did swing fail it, and it's dropped back through. So it is possible that we either get a retest of that old 2-month level, and that was why I had that question mark entry. It's not a zone I love on this red candle, but it is a retest. What you can find is if we swing fail a zone and come back through, that then when we go up and retest that zone, we get a rejection. So again, I was looking in here at the possibility of that 2-month level being picked up as resistance. So again, we'll see if we get that high, and so far we haven't got that high, and we had such a weak bounce last week. But yeah, there's a 5-day supply in there, there's a 3-day inside it, there's an 8-hour at the top, there's the 1-day untested that Wix went to about 15 times and kept missing my entry there that I've had for a while. Then there's this question mark zone, like I said, then there's a 3-day supply above it amongst weeklies and things. So there's a lot of supply above now. Again, if we get some ETF news, possibly it could throw a giant green candle through this. We are on monthly demand, but at the moment my bias is down on this, and my bigger picture bias is down. It would be nice to at least see some sort of a retracement here for a drop though. I don't necessarily think we're going to get it at this stage, but I guess we'll see. What else? Yeah, so CME, the only thing with CME, so it's just worth looking at the confluence. I think Korea again is dropping into this 2-week demand that I wanted. So again, it's not, and it's becoming into a zone that it's not clear. The confluence has improved on this though, because previously the Korea pair was a lot higher. CME again, the levels are slightly off what I see on the US dollar pair, so that's worth considering. So it made a kind of a very close to a double bottom yesterday. So I've gone back onto the wrong chart. So 2262, it's kind of, I think it went slightly above that, a few dollars above. It's also got this double bottom here at 2176, and the CME close at that level. So that is slightly higher than the double bottom we've got on the US dollar pair. So again, that is a level, so what is it, 2176, I should probably check so around there. And the 88 fib is worth watching if we then get the CME gap close and a swing fail on this CME pair. But I still like 2081, to be honest. I still like to see CME hit this weekly zone. I don't know, we'll see what happens. Yeah, just be aware that CME is slightly off. And there's only a $10 premium on the CME price at the moment. But yeah, so I'm just watching what's happening here and seeing if we get some structure change. So on the low time frame, I'll go onto my lower time frame chart actually. So Ether, so Bitcoin I've already explained really, it had this 4-hour demand here, and it's got on the CME pair, and it's only got an hourly on the US dollar normal pair, and didn't quite hit the zone below. So yeah, could get a bounce from here, but I don't love it, and I want to see ETFs start buying. This is the circle that I had on Ether from the low time frame perspective. It kind of bounced at the first level, or it wicked inside it, then it's bounced on this monthly level. But as I say, there's drivers for it potentially going lower. Either to the 2170 level. Let me just look quickly at what this green line is. I think this is, you know, I don't want to have that level there in there anymore, but yeah, so, you know, again, it could hold this range. I think this is the range. Yeah, so this is the range low from the consolidation back in 2021, 2022, so it could hold that green level. You know, obviously that's what it's trying to hold as support at the moment. But again, multiple tests on it, I would expect lower. So from the low time frame perspective, it did make a 12-hour supply, a week one. It's closed below. It's then and it also made an 8-hour just above. It has not even had the strength to come up and test the 12-hour and the 61 fib, and only very, very small retracement, and has now made an 8-hour supply, which apparently it's just rejected, probably since I've been doing this stream. So again, this is still looking like it's going down, and what I'm looking for is just for some of this supply to flip to demand. And yeah, so your question a minute ago, Aussie Mandius, this is what you're looking for. So let me look at Bitcoin just from a couple of days ago, just for an example. So, you know, this has dropped down. We were looking for a swing fail at this level. It did close the 12-hour above here, but then I think instantly, as soon as the 12-hour closed, it then started dropping back below. But let's say, you know, you thought maybe this was just an aggressive stop hunt and it was looking to break supply. I'm just going to get rid of that for the moment so you can see. You can see it's made an hourly supply at the top of this consolidation. We've got a 4-hour above, and these are your most recent supplies on the way down. So you're looking at these waves coming down where resistance is. So at this point, you can see that this hourly supply is acting as resistance. So we then start coming up and we make new demand. But that demand has been unable to break this local supply, if you can see in my mess of drawings. We've left some stops now, so I've got some other stuff in there that makes it harder to see, but we were unable to break this hourly supply. So while, you know, and I said this, you know, there is this new demand here. I did put a possible long entry on it, but I said in the comment when I put the alert for the alert coming through that this is weak demand because it's been unable, this demand has been unable to break supply. That doesn't mean it won't bounce. But in this case it didn't. It came through and it had stops that it was hunting, and we wanted the 85k wall to get hit, and it's exactly the same now. You know, now we've started to make higher time frame, and it's still like this hourly still is what's holding down this whole consolidation. You know, this might end up, so we've got an hourly, we've got a drop, we've got a retest, and this is your new wave down. And it's made a new hourly supply in here, and that's what's holding this. But you can see that this is still in a downtrend. So it's still, the expectation is that we test here, or, you know, it shouldn't break that hourly. It shouldn't break this swing high. So in this case, it hasn't, it's gone lower, but it could go up to there, and it's still in a downtrend. So what I'm watching is structure as it develops on each of the time frames. And of course, it doesn't mean you can't take scalps in between. You know, you could have scalped here after the bounce yesterday on these hourly demands to get up to supply, but at least know what you're doing. Like if the trend now is very much down on these lower time frames, you know, we've been down for most of the week, so it's possible we're due a bounce, but there's nothing that's telling me that we're getting the bounce as yet until I see supply break and or demand hold. So we're in demand now. So if this demand manages to hold, that's my drawing. If this demand, this has happened to me once before, I don't know why it does this, where my line just disappears. Okay, are we back? I had to play around with some tools before. Yeah, okay, so it's come back. So if we hold here and make a higher low, then great. Then maybe we get through supply. Or maybe we just get a move up to here, and then we have to see the reaction there because that's the start of the last drop. And then maybe that's the drop. But your buyer should still be down until you see something broken, or until you see we're in a major demand and we made a major demand. We started to make other demands inside it, and we start to see, so, you know, maybe this comes up to here, and then makes a higher low. Maybe there's a new demand here, but again, that's still a risk entry because we're still under supply. Once this goes up and breaks supply, then you can be more confident to long any new demand. So I hope that helps a little bit. Assuming you're still here and watching. Yeah, anyway, I've done far too much or far more than I wanted to do on Bitcoin and Ether, so I'm going to go on to the alts quickly. I don't want to go over the majors because again I did all that yesterday. But one thing just to be aware of, so a lot of the majors, so virtually all the majors firstly have 5-day supply above now. That may in some cases convert to a weekly or 2 weekly if we can't get a move up the rest of this week. I did put a couple more aggressive entries in just because I wanted some more shorts just in case we get a bigger move on 2-day supply here on BCH. I already had the 2-day supply on Litecoin, but that was a bit more risky because obviously this is one of the stronger ones. But be aware that quite a few of the majors created a daily supply yesterday. So we've got that on XRP and BCH no, but I had that 2-day from the day before. And EOS I've also set an alert on 2-day supply up here. Slightly more risky because we're coming off a monthly demand, and the same for BCH. If we see these breaks, then we just look for longs on the retests. But at the moment, so the structures on these, and I'll be able to show more when I get to the alts, you know, we're looking at a 5-day supply. These 5-day supplies might break because we are coming off higher lows. But again, I want to wait and see. I need to like wait it out. And I think some of them are worth looking at just to get into shorts because I don't want to assume they break until they do. But because we're coming off this wick and the higher lows, they're not necessarily strong supplies on the 5-day. So here you can see on ADA we had a daily supply. It's kind of whipped up very close to it and is dropping back down. Dogecoin also daily supply. Link didn't make a daily supply. It might make a daily demand, and I do like Link for longs. It's got a big drop, so it's got a big gap it can fill, and it's on a 6-month demand. So really keep an eye on Link. BNB also made that daily supply. Has tested it. Would like to see this back down on the 12-hour demand ideally. And then we can see if we can get to BNB and Link are still the two stronger ones. ADA I kind of liked, you know, it did have a decent move here, but you know, it's not looking great. You know, I wanted it to hold this daily demand and it didn't. So this is Dot, Atom, Near and Sol. Sol is on a 2-month demand, but it's still looking really quite ugly. It also made that daily supply. So if you know, and if on the opposite side, you know, if you like, I don't want to short here because this is on 2-month demand, even though it could go lower. But if this flips this daily, so if we do get a strong move and it closes above here, then you can look to long on that daily demand. And exactly the same applies on all these 5-day supplies. So these 3, Dot, Atom and Near, you can see all have the 5-day supply. You can see that Dot's gone pretty high into it, up to a 12-hour supply near the top of it. That's why I say it's a weak supply, because it's been unable to break the wick low. But if you see again these 5 days, if these flip to demand, then again we can start looking for longs. But at the moment we're still underneath all of them. Yeah, so a bit of a mix on these majors. But yeah, like I'm not particularly confident while we remain under immediate supply, but it is weak supply. Okay, and then on to the alts. I think I looked at some of the alerts from yesterday, or when I was doing the stream yesterday. Keep an eye on GOMINING. This is probably the only one that come up that I'm really interested in. Like this hit a monthly demand. I mean, it has had a lot of distribution up the top, but it's again one of the really, really strong ones compared to the rest of the market. So I have set an alert, a re-alert down for 3 months, and it's got an annual demand. So on a macro time frame, keep an eye on this. I'd like to see it bounce here, but those are the lower zones if it does fail to hold this monthly. So it came down quite deep inside it, but has bounced. But yeah, keep an eye on this. It's had a 2-week supply up there, which I think has already been tested. Yeah, so it made a 2-week supply, it tested it, and then it's dropped down into monthly demand. So we'd like to see a bit of consolidation on this, but this could potentially get a decent up move. It's got a weekly supply in there, so you have to be a little bit aware of that. And I think it's also got a 5-day. Or in fact, that 5 days is not confirmed. Yeah, that 5 day isn't confirmed yet. I've put in some preempting them. But yeah, keep an eye on this on the lower time frames to see if this can give you an entry, because this is a decent, strong mover compared to a lot of the rest of the market. Oops. DOGEAI is also something I want to keep an eye on, because this is generally an interesting chart. So I was a little bit early on the longs over here, but now it's started. So this is again an example of it starting, you know, these are early longs and it came back down and broke the low because at this point it's still in a downtrend. So that's showing you weak demand because it has been unable to break supply. Then here we have the proper move up, you know, a really decent strong move up, still didn't break supply. So at this point it's still in a downtrend and this is still a risk entry. But we have had an impulsive candle up, we have had a swing fail of the low. So again, worth looking for a long here, worked quite well, worth looking for a long here. Again, this demand has been unable to break supply at this point. So it, you know, it's still trying, there's still hope for it. And I'd like to see, you know, if this creates a 2-day demand today, then you might get an aggressive long entry up here tomorrow. I haven't put another long entry lower because there isn't really a demand I want there. And also if it does make a lower high, then I expect to take out that low. But again, I think this is something that's worth watching and see if it can give you a low time frame entry. What else? I think that's kind of all the alerts from yesterday. LDO and liquidity were the two that I kind of said to watch from a high time frame perspective. BERA also might take off, but again, it hasn't given me a new entry that I want as yet. But this is actually kind of looking pretty nice on the lower time frames. Go to my watch list. Okay, and then Ray also hit a monthly demand, but I don't know why this had a huge fall compared to everything else. It actually did come off an annual supply, so that's like not overly surprising. Yeah, so those are the kind of alerts. I haven't had many other alerts today because obviously the market's been going sideways and I've had quite a few hit from previously. So yeah, moving on to the P's and Q's. Let me just go to find my watch list. So I'll give some more of the detail, I think, at the beginning, and then I can sort of show at least really what the structures are doing. So you can see, looking at PAAL, I'm just scrolling down to the right place on my watch list. So you can see, looking at PAAL, that so in a lot of these cases, I've already put in the 2-month supply because I'm assuming we're not going to get a huge bounce before tomorrow, at least on alts. So we can see it's made a 2-month supply. It's weak because it's coming off a wick. It's in monthly demand, but it's sort of wick through that zone. It's also making a monthly supply up here. For some reason, I haven't put a short entry on this. Maybe I just thought it was too unclear. I have a possible long entry on just a retest of this 3-day zone. Don't know why I didn't put a short on this, maybe just because it's not. So again, the problem, just to reiterate, if you've watched my other alt updates, it's basically the same scenario as most of those, except now in many cases we're going to have monthly and 2-month supply above. But above we have, sort of most cases we have a 3-week supply, this is a big one, some smaller quite often have a 2-week. A lot of them have that zone in here, and a lot of them have tested those zones on the lower time frames. So again, it's just a little bit challenging as to whether, if we go back and test again, whether the higher time frames will still pick up those zones as resistance, having already tested on the lower time frames. I have no idea why I didn't put a short entry on this chart. I think actually possibly because I was thinking this is a monthly demand, it's bounced off it, it's wicked through it and stop hunted it into this 3-day, and this could potentially get an up move based on that. So you can see again, this is example of the 5-day, it's gone up, it's rejected it. This 5-day will then become a weekly. So again, I don't know if that when it converts to a weekly, if it stays down here for the next 3 days, whether that's still going to act as resistance, having already tested. It's just seeing a lot of that chop, and a lot of the alts have the same chop up here. And this is PAAL's not the best example. I'll show you a lot more of those. But I think, yeah, I mean, this could run through up to, yeah, I think it's just not clear. So you can see, I mean, you can see the chop on the daily. I haven't put all the daily zones in, but you know, this daily zone is something that hasn't been tested. So if we do get a run, we might get a run up to there and just taking out all these stops. So I think this is bullish overall. It's a possibility. It has had a decent move up in here, but again, we're still rejecting monthly supply there. And it's been unable to hold monthly demand. A little bit of a messy chart here. But yeah, so I put an alert here for a retest of this 3-day demand. If it drops back down into there, that's a possible short, so I'll leave that for the moment because I am running out of alerts and it's quite far away. But it is also going to make a 2-monthly supply at the same level as this 5-day and what will be a weekly. So we may get a rejection even much closer. So it could end up not getting back past this level. And again, it follows, that's exactly what I was explaining on the higher time frames. Sorry, on the lower time frames of Bitcoin. You know that we've dropped down, we've made a supply. This is your supply. We've come back up and tested it, and we're dropping. So until we break that zone, we're not bullish. So actually, that's possibly a fairly reasonable place for a short. Oops. Excuse me. Hold on, I lost my long entry. Yeah, so I need to see a little bit more on that. I don't know why I have a second PAAL chart on here. That probably needs to be removed. PAXG is the gold chart, so I've got that in here, but that's basically just trading gold. So I wouldn't use that chart to chart this. So here's another one. PDA is going to create a 2-month supply up there. So in some cases I've been a lot more conservative on entries, and in others, again, just to reiterate what I said previously, in other cases I've been more aggressive. So this has a 2-month supply. It's nice and clean if it does get back up there, but this also has a weekly supply right at price, which it's rejecting off now. It's got a 5-day in there that's already been tested, so this could get through here. It's a weak supply, but you know, this might just reject and keep going down here and never come back there. However, I just like to have a variety of entries. You know, obviously here we came down, we had 3 waves down, and eventually it goes back and tests higher. So even if this does keep going down here, at some point I expect it to test that zone. So I just like to have various entries in. But in this case, and any of the charts that look like this, you can certainly take aggressive shorts, and I think these are the highest probability trades at the moment. So absolutely, if you ignore these wicks, or if you see charts without these wicks, you can look for aggressive entries. Also have another PDA chart. I need to remove some of these. I think this has more of the history higher. So you can see it's had a very clean rejection of the monthly supply up there, and then it's made a new monthly supply here. So that's a very nice short entry. If it comes back there, or when it comes back there, if it doesn't get delisted first, which is always a possibility. Okay, PEAQ, I don't even know what this is. Okay, this is obviously a relatively new, probably just MEXC. Again, it's got 4-day or 5-day supply, 4-day supply at current price. It could just reject off here and keep going down. This, I think, again, highlights the sort of messiness. You can see, you know, it's sort of a 3-day supply. It has been tested. It's a 4-day. It has been tested. This is a daily. Hasn't been tested. So this one, I've kind of gone with the entry. This is the point of where the weekly supply broke down. It's the supply that broke weekly demand. Sorry, weekly demand. It's the supply that broke weekly demand. So I would have liked to get an entry there. May or may not get it. Now we've got this new 5-day in between. So again, you know, like in a lot of these cases, you know, and if this runs, it could just run all the way through to the top. You can see on the daily, like this wick, for example, it's gone back through a couple of dailies and just rejected on that daily. This is just a cleaner, bigger zone, so I thought it was worth an alert, but may or may not get back up there. But at least it highlights the this, and similarly here. So this is just generally the challenge I'm having on all these charts. So this now has a, what's that, a 6-monthly supply up there, which it hasn't quite tested. There's a 6-month, and then there's a monthly just below. So if it comes back up here, that would be a great place for a short, but obviously that's miles away on PEPE. This may create a 2-week supply at current price now. So you can see that like the alts at the moment aren't looking great. I'm putting these zones in, but I'll delete them obviously if we do get a bounce before. So might create a 2-week supply at current price. I've gone with an alert just at the point of breakdown. There's a 5-day in here that's already been tested, and again you can see, let me go back to some of the highs. There's a 2-week up here that hasn't been tested. Then there's a 5-day also hasn't been tested. There's a 4-day up here that has been tested. So again, just challenging to know which zones, because a lot of it's going to be, you know, at what point the market's at when this hits. So this one I've gone slightly more aggressive on because this is at the point of, again, the supply that broke all-time low, so worth watching here. And then if it moves up, we're just going to have to be either you're more conservative and you stay at the top of the last down move, or you can fib these moves down and say, well, you know, where's the 61 fib? So in this case, the 61's at the 2-week supply level here, so maybe it'll reject a little bit lower if it gets back up there, but again, just hard now we've got these massive downtrends. Pendle's one I quite like. Actually, no, sorry, I correct that. I think I did like it because you can see the structure and the consolidation on this level. The problem is we have, again, we're going to have a 2-month supply on this. So I've drawn it in, may or may not confirm, but we've got a 2-month supply there. We've also got a monthly that's already been rejected above. So it's still holding this demand. So again, monthly supply, but weak supply. This could just continue to consolidate through here. You could get a long off here. You know, I did have a long on for a test of that weekly, but again, we just need to, it's come straight back up into weekly supply. So we need to see on the retest now, is it going to continue this downtrend or is it going to consolidate here for another move up? So I've just gone with the obvious on this, a 3-week supply there for a short, and you know, if we make a lower low, then the next demands are down here. I've been slightly more aggressive, I think, on the demand. It does have a 3-month lower, but I'm just sticking with the, you know, the consolidation again, which broke all-time high. So we'll see if we get an early bounce on that, if it gets down there. PENGU is ugly, and again, these meme coins, I don't know if they're going to resurrect or not, but I went with a more aggressive short entry on the 5-day supply there. It hasn't quite hit on that bounce. May or may not get there. Bit of consolidation. So yeah, just see what the reaction is here. Again, if it runs through the zone, then maybe we'll get the long entry for a move up to higher zones, but in the short term, that's the zone I want to see broken. Trying to finish. Smoke a cigarette while I'm doing this. Just have some water as well. People. Let's see which chart I'm using. I'm using the second chart on this. Okay, so, and yeah, so this I guess highlights the ones with history. So I've said, so we've got ones with a lot more history than this, and then ones with medium history like this, and then the new stuff. The new stuff is just this, so it just looks like an epic downtrend. The stuff with history and the newer history like this, it's quite hard to judge, you know, like, is this a downtrend? Or, you know, I mean, obviously it probably started here. Is this an uptrend or at least a consolidation in the middle? So again, we're just looking at, are we going to get the higher low here? We have made a lower high, therefore this is not strong demand, but I don't know what the overall trend is because I haven't got enough history on the high time frame to know. So I think this bounced, I put this alert in afterwards, so this is bounced on a 5-day demand or a 4-day just above the 2-week, 3-week. So again, if it comes back down, we can look for longs there. This again highlights the difficulty with short entries. We've got 2-week up here that hasn't been tested, and a 2-monthly by the looks of it up there that hasn't been tested. We've got a 3-week, 2-week that hasn't been tested in here but has been tested on the weekly, and then there's various 5 days and 4 days throughout. So again, it's that same challenge that I keep talking about. This may close under the 2-month level here again, making it more bearish. So that obviously is a preferred short entry, is probably on 2-month supply all the way up there, but we've got the more aggressive potential moves in between. So again, just to reiterate, as you know, like I trade waves, you can see from all the entries here, like I'm trading scalps and waves. So there's a big difference between, like, I need to assess what the market's doing. If we get here, what will tend to happen is either we'll just run straight through it, in which case you're never going to get the entry because I'm just wrong and it's stronger and we're bullish and we're going up. Or it will at least pause and consolidate here. Then I'm looking at it to see what new demand is. You know, if it's made a weekly demand right underneath that level, then I won't take that short because it's not high enough risk to reward. If we get a big giant green candle up into this area, then obviously if it's going to retrace, it's likely to have a reaction there, and if it's going to retrace, it's got a significant distance it can retrace, so it's worth it for a risk to reward. But it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to hold it looking for all the way down here. I personally don't have the patience to do that, and I need to assess what the market's doing near the time. Like, you can make these judgments on the higher time frame. So, you know, from a 2-month perspective, I mean, this chart's not ideal to do it, but, you know, if we get up here, then I might be more inclined, if I get a rejection and a decent entry in here, to hold for a bigger move. Probably not all the way down here, I still don't have the patience, but yeah, so just so you need to assess as and when the zones hit. So here anyway, this is kind of having a nice, let me see what that yearly level is. So it's, okay, it's a yearly supply in fact, so it can potentially hold that as support. It's not a great supply. But it's obviously trying to hold in here. This is 5-day supply. It's already wicked up into it, unable to make a new low, so it's probably likely to break this supply. So we'll see what happens as we get up to these higher levels. And yeah, as you can see, there's all the chop through there. PEPE reminds me a lot of POPCAT. So this is, you know, broken trend. Difficult one. So broken trend, but it is. So we've got a 3 monthly demand here, and it's sitting on a monthly demand. So we've come. So had the entries for possible longs off the top of 3 month demand, which didn't get a bounce, and now on for, I don't know what this was, like a monthly demand inside, or is that just? I'm not sure if the alert was just the 5-day demand inside the monthly, but it's still obviously drifting lower. So these ones I find challenging because while the structure looks quite bearish, I don't really want to be shorting while we're in monthly demand. So I wouldn't look for aggressive shorts on this, but I still don't like it that much. You know, it is in a monthly demand, so let me just look at the monthly chart. Check, yeah, so it's in the 3 month demand. It's got this monthly at the base of it, so this, you know, could very easily have another decent up move off here. So I've gone more conservative on the short side. There is a 3 week supply up there, which I think hasn't been tested, but has been tested lower time frame, so again challenging. It's got a local weekly supply, but I don't want to short like right on this. There are better things to short. I think originally I had long down here on the 61 fib, and I probably prefer that, but I was just thinking if this monthly demand does hold, there is a 2-day, again, just not to be too far away, have alerts too far away from current price, there is a 2-day demand here, so we could pick up support just taking out this wick. And if it does, again, if you get a swing fail of this wick into this 2-day demand and it has a decent move off it, then potentially it could go back into long entry land, you know, even if it does end up as an inverse head and shoulders. So, you know, there's a lot of the alts that are stronger are looking like this. You know, we're not seeing the strength that we'd want to see with a bounce off here, and they're coming a bit deeper. So it's possible we're going to end up with something like that on some of these. But yeah, so that's PEPE, PEPU, whatever this is. It's going to make a monthly supply, so I've just again gone more conservative on the short entry on this. You know, while it might reject various 2-day and daily demands, supplies lower, I'd look for a reaction if it comes back up into the monthly zone there. PERP. PERP is also going to make a 2-month supply there, so again I've gone, while again, so then another sort of slightly challenging one, so we are holding, had a big down move, it barely retraced any of it, we are holding this as support, so again it could turn out to be a range, this could be the bottom of the range, and then we could just get a move at least up to the top of the range or up from here. You know, it hasn't broken down, but again 2-month supply, I don't want to trade against it. So if I look at the higher time frames, it's not a best 2-month supply because it's made up of 2 candles. It's not as clean as I'd like, but I think there's a 5-day at the level, so I think what have I said on the alert? 2-month supply, 4-day just inside, and it's choppy above, so again, like I don't like the chop of all these zones, but I would like to see a reaction at this level. If we don't get that, then I'll probably wait till the top. I've also set an alert, which doesn't appear to be here, let me set the alert there on all-time low on this. So yeah, if we get a move, so I would like to see, it would be nice to see a hit on the 2-month, a break and a possible swing fail of all-time low, and then look for that long entry. Take that trend line off now. But again, what we are seeing here is, you know, an impulsive moves down. This is more corrective, and then an impulsive move up, an impulsive move up. This is stronger, it's corrective but stronger, but then this is a very corrective move up. So you can see, so I guess the momentum, what I'm seeing is the momentum's dying off. You know, we had sort of potential here, but because it's been unable to get that high, you know, there were people potentially interested. but then it's obviously come down right to the bottom of the range, and then it's lacked interest on that last move up. So I do expect this to break the low. It's just a question of how much it retraces first. Again, I quite liked this, but I think it was just messy. I like that we're holding a monthly demand, and we're still holding this, and that we are making slightly higher lows. But again, we are coming off monthly supply, so I'd like to look for longs in here. There wasn't anything I could put though, being under this 5-day supply. So keep an eye on this. Actually it's a 6-month demand, so yeah. So it's a 6-month demand, and it has gone all the way down into it and had this really big move up off it, and it's retraced a lot of that, and we're now back in the monthly at the start, which actually already tested it. So it's a difficult one, but this is something that could get a decent move up if it wants to. I put an alert here. There's a 4-day and then a 5-day supply for possible shorts, but they won't necessarily be high probability shorts. And I normally put, I'll put coming from 6-month demand. So I normally just put a disclaimer on it, that if it's coming up with a lot of strength. Because the other thing what you can do is when you get these tests is if we get a test up here, this is 6-month demand, so if we get a test up here and it rejects, you can then look for the long entry. So it helps you remember, if I put the comment that it's a 6-month demand coming from a 6-month demand, then you can look for the short on a scalp and then potentially look for a bigger long entry if it's made new demand. But it helps me know at least later if this has had a reaction. I'll come back to it. PHB is kind of dying off quite a lot, so I was very bullish on this all through last year, and even trying to long for a breakout there and failing, and then died off. It has now, I think now, we're still in 3 months, so it's a challenging one. We're in 3-month demand, but it's going to make a 2-month supply, and I think it's already got quite a lot of supply in there now. So it's just a bit of a messy chart here. So I put an aggressive alert for the 2-month supply, which is going to get created there. It's got, again, same as everything else, so a couple of 5-day zones above that haven't been tested. Let me just go to the 5-day. 5-day zone there and a 4-day zone there, or a 3-week zone above that haven't been tested. So it's just a bit of a harder one. Has broken trend, so worth looking for a short on a retest of this zone, I think. And also had a decent drop off that zone. So I think I was tossing up whether to have a long entry in here. I'm actually going to take that out. I think it was 2. There is a clean 2-week there. But I was sort of loath whether to alert it, because I don't know, I just don't love the choppy mess through here. So it's possible it does, kind of wick down. And then I put a very, very conservative entry on this weekly demand down here if we do entirely fall off the trend line and start and look to retrace this up move that we had there. Phil, this is what I commented on the other day. Actually, somebody asked me if I hold on to trades, and I was like, no, I don't normally, but I sometimes I look back at them, and I was looking at this chart at the time, so sometimes I look back at them and think, God, I wish I had. So something like this. So these charts, which are new and generally newly listed on futures, if you see something like this, if anything comes up in any of these alts that has a monthly supply like this, it is worth holding, because those are the ones you see really drop because there's no equivalent demand. It's going to make a new monthly supply up here. However, I'm just kind of going because this is in such a big downtrend, I was going with the aggressive short entry. It's looking like it will make a weekly supply there, but it's not confirmed yet. And I think has already got a 5-day or a 4-day, or it might create a 5-day at current price. It's already got a 4-day in there, so I always think it was worth looking for an aggressive short, but it hasn't gone back and tested that. Yeah, something I did. Yeah, it's kind of rejecting off this level already, but again, it's had kind of a fairly strong move down from this zone, so it's worth looking for a short if it comes back into here. Just for having some on the more aggressive side. If this does start to flip to a long, then again, if this zone breaks and then we make a weekly demand, then we're likely to get a very big move that's going to take out a lot of these stops. So something that's worth considering. Pirate, another one that's just dropping a lot, is going to make a monthly supply up here. So again, even that's hard. There's a 3-day that's just below that level. It's got a weekly, a 2-weekly and a 3-weekly there as well, but also it's making a weekly at current price. Already has a weekly at current price, which is gone up inside and is trying to reject. So it might make, it's already made a 5-day there. I think I was tossing up, putting an alert on that 5-day, but I just didn't think it was quite strong enough. You want to see a stronger move away from the zone, like sort of like this, to have and even like here, this 5-day supply when it came up to test inside there. Ideally for a higher probability, you want a stronger move away from the zone, but this is obviously still looking like it wants to go down. It's going to make probably a 2-day supply in there today, so you can potentially look for shorts on this if you want to. It's definitely not ready for longs yet, and if it gets a bigger move up, then up there. Pi just sort of took off at random. Well, not at random yesterday, it was just crawling up, but it's made a daily demand in here, but it's got these trend line stops, and I was actually looking at that at this point, wondering if we were hoping we were going to get a breakdown here, either down into this daily demand or at least down into this 2-hour zone for then along, but it just went straight up from there without taking any of the stops. It's obviously hit the MEXC all-time high. I haven't checked any other charts to know if there are other charts, so I think it's you know, keep an eye on this. It's still in 4-hour demand, still holding, but keep an eye on it, because if you can get a decent short on this, then potentially you've obviously got a significant move down that it can make, you know, even if it only comes down to this daily demand. So if that is the top, you might want to look for another swing failure of the high here. But if that is the top, I mean, you can long it if you want to, but see what consolidation it makes through here. If it starts to look more like this, then maybe you want to look for a long entry, else look for short entries, and if you get one to come back down into this zone, either into this 2-hour or into the daily at the base there. PIVX I think was just a complete mess. So yeah, this was coming off annual supply, but it's had a few hits inside it, but you know, with a rejection on annual supply and this 3-month inside it, like I really want this to take out the ultimate low in a perfect world. We've got a monthly demand that it's still holding, and it has swing failed there, but it's looking like it's going to make a 2-month supply by a hair. That's why my whole chart's brown. I think, yeah, again, just because of the difficulty on this, so we may not even get past this zone, but it has swing failed the low, so possibly if we get a move up into here, then I'd look for shorts and a perfect world to come down to this zone. Pixel, another one that's looking not very attractive, made a weekly supply and rejected off it. You know, again, might pick up this as the all-time low. Possibility there. Is going to make a 2-month supply, so I've just again gone more conservative side on this. It does have a 4-day in the middle here, so again, I don't know how much is this going to retrace, and if it, even on these ones where I've alerted 2-month supply, obviously it doesn't have to reject right at the bottom here, it could come up higher inside, so just keep an eye on it. In this case, you know, it's worth keeping an eye on, because, you know, it had, this is where its previous support was, so again, you're looking shorting supply where it broke previous support. But having said that, you know, also didn't come up and test this level, so it's hard to know. These are the harder ones I find, because it hasn't tested where I would want it to test. You know, ideally you would have that move, but it's come up here. If that's the case, then it might do this rather than continue the downtrend straight from here. But yeah, just need to keep an eye on the structure. Plume was one, I like this chart, or well, I like it provisionally. It's not ready yet. If this makes, I think I've got a possibility, no, okay, so we're still in daily supply. I've got a weekly demand here in the blue, and then we're still just about to hit daily supply. I ended up being just so indecisive on this, I've set an alert for a break of this trend line and a break of that trend line. So I just need to see a little bit more on this, but I didn't want to forget about it. Like, it had a nice long entry here, a nice short entry there, but it's just really just forming the triangle. But at some point this has to break out. But if the alt market obviously is going to get stronger now, which is a fair chance it will, because the others chart is in a decent spot for a bounce, then we would expect this to go up. Got to keep an eye out, there is a double top here on the lower time frame, so just keep an eye out for a swing fail there if you are looking to long this, and don't long it right now because we're in daily supply, so even at best just again watch the lower time frames. If this gives you, so it's given you now a new 8-hour demand in here, so that might be a decent long entry. I might actually set that, because why not? It's difficult because it's coming off, it's still under this daily supply. So in a perfect world, what I would want to see here, I don't like trading triangles, but I would want to see this move up higher into the daily supply and then come back for a test to get the long entry. But I'm going to put that there because it coincides with the weekly level. So I'm going to put a possibly aggressive long entry on this. 8 hour demand. So yeah, keep an eye on that if it gets a test back down there. And also break of trend lines in either direction, as I said. PNUT, again, so I've got 2 alerts on this. So this is, we had this giant wick on MEXC, and I don't know if that happened on other exchanges or whether it was just MEXC, that came down and alerted my weekly 3-day demand that I had down here. I was hoping this retracement would come and test this level again, or even that level. So that's where I've had the alert set, but now also you can see it's made a low and then it's tried to make it, it's making a higher low, or it's made a swing failure there, maybe just a slightly higher low there. And then it's actually had a decent move off it. So I've gone with a more aggressive alert, 4-day demand, which I may regret, but it has made a 4-day demand there, so it's worth watching for a retest of this zone. It's still structurally down. You know, this is still, well, I mean, again, if we ignore the wick, as I've explained for previous charts, if we ignore the wick, you know, it's still retest, so this could still break that low, but 4-day demand, it's worth watching for a possible retest. The only thing I don't love is that wick's tested it already, again, tested the area on the lower time frame. But yeah, what we're looking for is this to just consolidate through here for potentially the move up, but just be aware it could come down there as well. But that's kind of potentially a reasonable chart. And the only thing with PNUT is because obviously it was a meme coin that was relevant at the time. I just don't know if this is going to be relevant still, and whether it has the capacity to do a decent move. PAAL was on my majors list, but I've now taken it off in favour of Dogecoin because nobody ever asks me about this anymore. But obviously I've had all the previous entries on this. 3-day demand down here, like, yeah, you can probably see my previous updates on this. Again, I went for an aggressive short entry on this because it's made a weekly supply. So, and again, in the interest of having more aggressive entries, it's a weekly supply, but it is a weekly. If the market stays weaker, then that is likely to get a rejection in there. So keep an eye on that for an aggressive short. You know, if it even comes back up there, like it's looking like it's rolling over again, 2-day above, and then that whole chop of the 3-week, etc., above, if it ends up in that, back in that direction. POLYX, trying to remember this one. Okay, so we're in a 3-month demand at the lows, but it's already had a couple of tests on it. So it's in a 3-month demand here, and there's a monthly inside it. So I would look, you know, that wick hasn't quite made it down to this monthly. Obviously I've had the alert there a couple of times. So I'd like to see this test and properly coming up into monthly demand. It doesn't have to, it may or may not. It's also going to make a 2-month supply above. But again, just because of the structure, because of the monthly demand, I think this also has an annual, yeah, it's also in a large annual zone, although not a strong one. But again, this has the potential to pick up an upward structure again if it wants to. So done waves up, it's retraced, done a zigzag correction potentially. It's already tested this monthly supply, so we do have the 2 months to be worried about, but if we get a move down into this monthly demand, then that might give a decent long entry off there. So I've gone slightly more conservative on the short. So this is an example of what I was saying with the shorts. You know, it's got a 3-week supply here. You can see the black level. It's not tested. It's got a 2-week supply, also not tested just below. But when you look at the weekly chart, you can see this wick has tested that area. So while I'm putting entries there, I kind of want to observe them and see whether we still react there. POLYX is also going to get, so locally it's looking likely it's going to make a 2-week supply in there, may even make a weekly just below it, and it already has the 5-day that I've talked about that it's rejecting off. So we'd like to see a move down on this a little bit lower ideally. PONKE. Another one that could hold here, I didn't have alert here, obviously I hadn't charted it, but yeah, I would have had alert on this 2-week demand. There's a 3 month below, and then that's got a monthly inside it. So I've alerted that if we do get a move lower, and this is also on the higher time frame. There's a 2 month going to be a 2 month supply. It's also got a 2 week and a 3 week supply in here. So I potentially look for shorts if we get a retest up there. POPCAT, similar to one of the other ones I was describing earlier. I can't remember which one now, but yeah, it's in a monthly demand. It already tested, so it's back in the monthly demand, but we got a lot of long entries on this back in the day for the push up, but then it kind of made this low time frame pattern and rolled over. It's now going to make a 2 month supply above there, and it's got a 3 week inside, I think there. So that's where I set the alert. So I've set the alert on 3 week, 2 week supply up here. But it's because it's going to make a 2 monthly, but it is still holding monthly demand and holding a weekly inside it. So hard to say what this might do. It is clearly trying to hold this as support at the moment. Again, just in the interest of having a slightly more aggressive entry for a possible scalp, I put an entry on this 2 day demand because it hasn't been tested at the base there. If that fails, then we're looking at a significantly bigger drop. But on something like this, I'd really like to see, whether or not it comes down to here, but I'd like to see that move up before the bigger drop. We've had, it's now 3 or 4 months of down. It's leaving a lot of stops behind, so, and the market potentially is due some sort of a retest. And again, it's that sort of inverse head and shoulders that I talked about before that we're likely to see on these, I think. Portal. Undo. So another one's going to make 2 month supply, so I've gone slightly more conservative on the alert there. There is currently, it's in a 5 day. We're also going to get there's also a 2 day up inside here, but again, just that chop on the way down, but sticking with the high time frame zones. It's going to make a 2 month and a 1 month just inside that. So we'll see what happens when we get there. My 3 week zone, and yeah, there's a 3 week zone just inside, so I've got the alert set sort of slightly more aggressively on this, but yeah, obviously that can come higher inside the zone. Porto. So I kind of hope for these football coins because a couple of them pumped, but then the ones, I think there's one later that's looking okay, PSG, but Porto is weaker. So again, it has made 2 month supply, or already made, no, it's going to make 2 month supply in there, but it's already kind of rejecting off that same level. We've got, so it made a weekly supply and it came through that a little bit up to a 5 day. So again, this is just choppy and messy. I've gone with this is kind of more inclined to wick, so I think I've gone with the higher time frame, just the 3 week supply inside, but there is also a 2 week above. So see what happens if we get a test of that zone, but also as it's looking now, it might just create a 2 week supply at current price. So a couple of days, so we'll see what happens here. And it's obviously already got the 5 day, so I've set an alert on the low for the possibility of a swing failure or a breakdown of the low. We'll see what happens and what reaction we get there. POWR was another one that's a little bit harder to read. It's got a 3 month demand, but it's already tested it and unable to make a higher high, so I guess I expect to take out this low. I've set an alert for this 2 month level, but it has hit 3 times already. However, did have a good move off it, so if we do come back down here, it's possible we'll see another reaction. And again, I went slightly more aggressive on the short on this. I think this may create a monthly supply. No, it's a 3 month level if we create. So a lot of these also look like they're going to create 3 month supply, but we've still got a month till that closes, so we can't judge that right now. But I went slightly more aggressive on this. So this has got 3 week and 2 week supply above. That was kind of, well, the 3 week was already tested, not the 2 week. I've said that, if we confirm a 2 week supply here, I think it's worth looking for a more aggressive short on this to try and get down to lower zones. Again, just a mix of more aggressive and less aggressive. Prime looks quite nice actually, but this has got a 6, might hold here as a 3 week demand. Might have already made the low, but it's got a 6 month demand and a monthly was a 2 week and then a 2 month just inside it here. So I think this is worth an eye if it comes down a bit lower. So I've set the alert down there. It is also going to make a 2 month supply, unfortunately, unless it does that very, very quickly. But again, because of that 6 month demand, I've gone more conservative on the alert rather than alerting at the open of the 2-month. I've alerted up in the 3-week supply up higher, and there's a 2-week inside. Well, I've got 3-week supply, so there's a 2-week a little bit higher, so this could still go. And if this is again, so on this we're looking at possibility of an up move, correction, zigzag correction takes out the low, and then we could get that. So, you know, making this sort of correction like that in the middle. But again, cross that bridge when we come to it. If I can see the reaction off here, that's great. I wouldn't hold anyway, but that would be the area we're looking for a short. But then obviously you're looking for something like that for that bigger picture to play out. It's a lot of time before that happens. PROM. This is a kind of a nasty chart. Like, I don't like that we're coming off annual supply up here, but from a long perspective, you know, it's taken out this monthly demand and really pushed higher back over it. So I was kind of like, well, okay, maybe I can have an aggressive long entry on this. The only thing was, again, here, this is a 5-day, 4-day demand, which has already been tested locally, and we're in 2-week supply. So I'm not really sure how good this entry is, but I thought it was worth watching. If we're going to get at least slow market movement, and you know, when everything else is looking down for the last few days, this is the one of the few things that's been moving up. So possibility of a retest and then a move up to there. There's a, so what's this, a 2-day or a daily? Yeah, so there's an untested, it's a 12-hour untested daily supply at the top here. So I have set possibility of a short entry. You know, if we get there first, then obviously maybe we'll look at that. Alternatively, we look at this, but again, these are just potentially scalps. If that isn't the low, you know, really I would have liked if this wick had come into this 2-day demand at the bottom here, so I guess we'll see. We can't obviously discount the fact we are coming off an annual supply at the highs though. So it's gone pretty high inside it, and it has, I mean, arguably this has played out because it's broken this, actually it hasn't broken the red candle, so if the annual supplies play out, we want this to really break the low, but we'll see what happens on that. That's just, these longs are just aggressive based on that swing failure of the low there. Pros. Check my stream again. Keeps telling me to use a keyframe frequency of 4 seconds or less. I don't even know how to change that. But I think the stream always looks alright, so I don't know why it's telling me that, or maybe it's just a furphy. Okay, so the pros is in a 6-month demand as well. So again, I quite liked this, but it's come obviously quite deep into the zone and has already tested. And yeah, that was the thing. I think it's already tested this, the 6-month and the monthly inside it, and it has had this big move off it already, and is now retracing that big move. So it's challenging as to whether, again, is this forming some sort of consolidating, you know, are we in a downtrend? Or are we now in an uptrend within that this bigger move, you know, where we've retraced that and then we're going to get a bigger move up. But you know, again, it's difficult because this does look corrective. So down, down. But I don't want to be too bearish because really it's just sideways. Weekly demand down here, like if we get, again, I just don't want to trade this mess in the middle now once the zones have been hit too many times. So if it comes down to the weekly demand, then we can look for a long. If we get up to this 2-week supply, look for a short. I think this is one of the few that isn't going to create a new monthly or 2-monthly supply. PSG. So yeah, again, this is obviously a much bigger downtrend. Got 6-month supply there, so while I said look for possible longs on this, I mean this may be a swing failure of this low. May just be a stop hunt of that low, and then potentially look for a stop hunt at the high. You know, it's been in a very long downtrend, and it is kind of moving into a possibility of being a sideways. You know, we've come back up into here, into the 6-month supply, and we've pulled down, we've played out the 6-month supply essentially. I put in the more aggressive long entry, like I say, because some of the other football coins had done a move, and maybe this was one of the ones that I thought had done a move, but let's see if that monthly, yeah, so okay, I already had the monthly supply, it has already dropped off it, so this is a bit of a risky long entry. And then, yeah, I put an alert for the 2-week supply up there if we could get a move from here a bit higher into the supply. So again, if we're still retaining the bigger downtrend, then I'm looking at this as, you know, possible that goes down from there, but also possible we just get like that first. So again, if we do come up here, then that would be a short I would look at to potentially hold to take out the low. Before I was looking back at this earlier, and again, this is just me not looking back and checking, so that would have been such a great entry for then moving all the way up and taking out the highs, but yeah, I haven't even looked at it back since November, so this is a lot of the chop on the way down. I've gone with a more aggressive 3-day, 1 week supply short, but I also said on this is not necessarily for shorting. We're coming from a 2-month demand at the bottom, so really what I want to see is this zone tested, if that's why the crosses back. So if this breaks, then I would look for a long re-entry. If it rejects, then we could still potentially look for new demand, but then or also a retest of the low. So again, this alert is new. You know, I want to see a second test of this level. It may or may not get given, but again, I quite like the possibility that this chart could do a big move from here. So keep an eye on that. You know, again, like, as I've said, you know, a lot of these have these trend lines that we could just see a run straight through all the zones there because they've all been tested already. So this is not necessarily for shorting. This is more just to see, you know, whether it gives us any demand. So I'd like to see some demand start to form to look for a long on this. It's just the short reminds me if I forget about it, which inevitably I will. PYR. Again, something that's coming off a big annual supply up there. It's going to create a new 2-month supply and a monthly. So again, I've alerted the 5-day supply inside this. It's had a decent move down off it. May or may not get past local 5-day supply. I've also alerted the low, the all-time low, for the possibility of a swing fail down there. PITH, God, we all had such high hopes for this back here. It had a monthly demand, and I was like quite aggressively looking for longs on there, but it really didn't go very far, and then just dropped. And has obviously now broken this support, so I guess we can see if it reclaims that level, but again is going to make a new 2-month supply in there. So I've gone more aggressive on the short. I think I was going to put it on this 5-day up here, and then I just thought, well, you know, if you've got a clean supply like this where it's had a decent move away from it at a key major level like a 2-month, it's worth looking more aggressively. And the wick's come pretty close to it, but it hasn't quite hit it. So perfect world, this will come up for another test, and then we can get maybe a big drop off this. Moving on to the Qs. QI is again one I liked, but so it's had the entry, it's had the bounce, it's bounced straight back up into weekly supply and has dropped back again. Let's go back up to the higher time frame. So again, like, you know, this could hold here, or it could come deeper if it wants to. So I put the alert for if it comes deeper, but again, looking for low time frame longs on this potentially, and you know, it's got the it's going to have a 2-month supply in there. Yeah, it will have a 2-month supply there. Excuse me, I've got a copy and paste of another chart with some more history on it. So we'll have a 2-month supply here, so it's going to be a risky one, but it's a clean test on 3-month demand, so I'm not going to put an aggressive short in. We'll see, you know, so be wary of that level if you do get longs in, but I've gone for a more conservative, again, because of the chop on the way down here, I've gone for a more conservative possible short entry because we're coming off 3-month demand. This could have a decent move. But that's a nice one to keep an eye on for the high time frame. GKC is going to make, actually I put the 2-month in, but it may or may not make this 2-month at current price. This is just really choppy and messy. It's going to have a monthly supply higher, again if it confirms, which I assume it will. So look for a short here on the monthly, and then a long, ideally taking out those wicks into this 3-month, 6-month zone below. Again, that may have already happened. You know, it did hit down there last year, but again, it hasn't had a decent move up. But I mean, really, this is just a choppy sideways mess. So if we get a bull run, something like this is probably going to be awesome. You know, it's come back, it's testing, it's making a 3-6 month demand, and it's probably going to be awesome, but we're really going to need the bull run. You know, this has been sideways here for 2-3 years now. So we shall see. Failing that, this is 2-month demand down there. It's not necessarily the highest probability short entry on that, I have to say. Okay, so here we've got QNT. So again, nice bounce here on 1-month demand. I've reset the alert because obviously I wasn't there in time, so it's possible we get a rejection here and we come back down for a test. May or may not happen. That would have been a really nice long if I'd been there in time. You know, we are rejecting now this 3-week supply. My only risk on this was that it didn't create an annual supply, but it's kind of drifted below, and it can, when this happens, it can just use that level as a potential resistance. So that's my only kind of bearish side on this, but again, and why I was just putting the alert slightly more conservative down there. What that's doing there, that probably should have hit there. So yeah, anyway, and I haven't put any short entries on this, because if this does come back down into monthly demand, you know, I quite like the cleanness of this structure. So while we might get a rejection on a 5-day supply up here, I don't think it's highest probability. It's kind of got a nice move off there. So we just need to see a bit more on this, but this could get a bigger move up if it wants to. QTUM. So QTUM again repeatedly just keeps holding this yearly zone, but not really getting very far off it. So again, in a perfect world, hide that. All the things on my chart. In a perfect world, again, this is, you know, if we get a bull run, this has been, you know, an up move in 2021. It's a long sideways consolidation. Maybe it can do a bigger move and break out from here. But again, we're still under critical zones at the highs, so I'm not confident of longs. We've got 2-month supply, it rejected off it, it's coming back down. We're in monthly demand here, so it could hold here. You know, I did have a long alert for monthly demand on this, but now it's going to make a monthly supply. So again, decent potential short entry if it moves back up into here, decent potential long entry if it comes down a bit lower. But again, with that chop, it's just hard. So on these ones with the history, you know, where they do have a lot of the chop, you know, you can just buy the range lows if you want to. You know, and if they hold the range lows, they do, and if they don't, you know, something like this, you know, you can see it's starting to break down. If it does break down, then you just get out. Here is one I've gone again slightly more aggressive on the shorts. It's going to make a 2-month supply. It's very close to it, but again, sometimes when we see things like this, which are breaking support, this could close down here and then just go straight back up into there in the first day or two of next month, and then drop straight off it. So I think it's again worth. It's a bigger zone, and it could. You know, but it's tested most of these zones higher, or at least close to testing. But yeah, so I've just gone with the more aggressive one on that, and we'll see what happens on QUBIC. And then finally, QUIC. Another one that's looking fairly unpleasant is going to create a 2-month supply in there, and I put the alert, there's a 3-day untested, and that at that level. So I think, again, worth looking for a more aggressive possible short on this. The risk on this is obviously that it's potentially swing failing at all-time low, so if it does that, then we could see a decent move up off it. But if it makes a 2-month supply, I think it's certainly worth looking for shorts. It's going to have a monthly inside it, and then, you know, later it's going to have a 3-monthly up here. So yeah, I'm definitely more bearish on this overall. Well, I've got 2 months. I have a 2-month supply there. Does it have a 6-month in this now? No. I'm going to make that into a 3-month. Yeah, and this is what I was just about to say, just as a final thing. So yeah, this sort of 2-month supply that it could just go back up and reject straight off it. If we look at this, you can see here, like, we closed below, it went back up a little bit inside it, dropped down, and then, you know, we get a bigger retracement later, but at the initial move, I think on this, yeah, is here, when it closes below and it goes up and it just rejects immediately off the level. So that's what I would be looking for on this, and I think on QUBIC the same is what I was saying. You know, you're looking for that, just close below and a couple of candles back up, and then the straight drop off it, and you could potentially get a decent short off that. So yeah, keep your eye out for those across the board. Yeah, anyway, so that's it. Finally finished the P's and the Q's, and then hopefully I've got, I'm still quite a lot on the watch list, but at least we're more than halfway through the alphabet. Oh, I've got to go out for dinner soon, so I better start getting ready as well, so that's good timing. I hope you enjoyed that, and let me know if you have any questions in chat. Please like and subscribe, and the usual comments that I have at the end of the stream, losing my train of thought now. And yeah, I hope everybody has a good weekend. Will I try and get to stream tomorrow? I'll try and see how many. I don't know. I mean, I've only just started the R's, so I'm not sure I'm going to stream the R's tomorrow, but I'll have to get them through them pretty quickly earlier in the day if that's the case, but we'll see how we go. And then, yeah, if anybody has any requests for stream, please also let me know. Just, yeah, you can message me through YouTube or in Telegram. Feel free to join my Telegram chat, Elisa's Charts, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. Have a good night.